Hi, I'm Ashley, and I'm a first-year veterinary student at St. George's University. And today we're going to be talking about interviews and how I prepared for them and the advice I wish I had done before doing the interviews. So you will notice me looking down a little bit. I have my computer right here just to make sure that I don't go too off track and don't keep you guys forever. And I hope you find this video helpful. And if you have any questions at the end or during, just put them down in the comments and I'll answer them as soon as I can. So for my third application cycle, I applied to 23 schools. Yes, I know it's a lot, but I did it because I didn't want to apply again. And I actually received 3 interviews from Mississippi State, Ross University, and St. George's University. And to get prepared for interview season, I didn't know at the time what interviews I would receive. So what I did was, for each of the schools, I made sure to attend at least one webinar or Zoom call to see how their program worked. And I jotted down ideas on what made the school stand out to me and what I was most interested in. I also jotted down some questions that I had in case I did get interviewed, just so I could ask those questions at the end of my interview. And I did practice some interview questions on my own. I didn't have another person to ask me questions just because that was a lot of stress for me. So I actually just did the interview questions on my own. I just literally Googled interview questions, and I also looked on the St. George's University website, and they actually have some sample questions that I found really helpful just to talk more about myself, because I hate talking about myself just like a lot of people do. I don't like bragging, but with the interview you do want to brag a little bit just so the admissions committee can actually get to know you and hopefully choose you for their program. So, let's see here. Yep, so I did base my interview outfits on like the colors of the school and kind of the location of the school. So for Mississippi State, I actually wore a burgundy dress, and I did have a suit jacket over it. I did buy a suit for my interviews. You don't have to. Most people I've seen can get away with dresses or blouses, dress slacks. And my interview was online for all 3 of them, just because it was still COVID at that point. It still is. So most of the interviews this year, I'm assuming, will be online as well, just because it works a lot better. So like I said, for Mississippi State, I wore the burgundy dress. For my Ross and St. George's interview, I actually had a floral blouse that I wore underneath my suit coat, so I just wore that for the interview. So study space, or interview space really, that was one of the most challenging things I had to figure out, just because I had a very noisy household, just because both of my parents were working at home during that time, and I also had a cat at the time who was definitely my personal cat. He hated it whenever I closed a door and he wasn't allowed in, so I actually had to have my parents entertain him for an hour by giving him wet food and loving on him downstairs while I could focus on my interview behind a closed door. I made like a makeshift desk with kind of what I'm using right now. It's a stand-up foldable desk, and I was actually sitting on the floor for most of it. You couldn't tell that during the interview though. So I was literally in a bedroom with a makeshift desk doing my interviews. So don't worry too much about how your setting is. I would just make sure to use kind of like a plain background, make sure you're professional. I did wear headphones just because I also live on a noisy street where there's usually a bunch of ambulance cars coming through. So I was worried about the noise affecting that. So I did wear headphones, and that didn't affect my results at all. As you can see, I did get in. But, so I'm gonna start with St. George's University because that was the first interview offer I got. My application for VEMCAS was verified on August 16th, 2021, and I actually received my interview offer from St. George's the following day, so the 17th of August. And I interviewed on September 9th, and I was accepted on September 23rd. Just because I was verified so early, I got my results back sooner than expected. But for my interview, it was more of like an informal conversation, kind of like what we're doing right now. And the interviewer, my interviewer at least, was a residency student in the States doing like a reproductive residency. And he was really nice. He actually told me a lot about himself first, just so I felt more comfortable. And then we kind of went into the interview from there. It wasn't too hard of questions. It was more of like, tell me about yourself. What challenges have you faced and overcome? Like, how financially are you prepared for veterinary school? There was very simple questions. It wasn't like behavioral scenarios like I know some schools do. So you don't have to go into too much detail, just be yourself. I know that's cliche, but that's what I did, and it seemed to help me. But don't be surprised though, during the interview like I wasn't prepared to stop in between my responses just because he actually had to write my answers down and provide it to the admissions committee later. He actually knew nothing about me. It was a closed book interview for him, so he didn't get my application, which was nice. And I got to talk to him about the experiences I had in the field and kind of how his experiences were on the island. It took about an hour to do the entire interview, and it was really nice. So if you have any specific questions about the St. George's interview, just let me know down in the comments. I hope this helps you feel not as nervous as I was.